Hello, and welcome to the Wade Borth podcast. I'm Wade Borth, your wealth strategist. And today I have a very special guest with me today. I have my assistant, Kira Nyland, with me today. Hello, Kira.
Hi.
And today we want to talk about client experiences overall. Kira's been working with me. Is it been a year? Pretty close to a year. Yeah. And we've ran across a number of things with clients and some different things. And today we thought we would talk about some of the things that have come up. And this was Kira's idea very much from a client perspective and really from what can create a stronger relationship between your life insurance agent or your agent and the client or the customer, or you in particular. Kira, go ahead and introduce yourself and fire away if you have any questions.
Yeah, sure. Wade said, my name is Kira, and I have enjoyed being Wade's assistant now. It's a very cool industry to be learning about and the positives of managing your wealth and what can come of that. But yeah, most recently we had a client who we just had not, talked to in a while regarding their policy. And it brought up, hey, what should we be doing as an agency to better that relationship with our client? We think that it's important to have some soft touches maybe once a year to reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? Do you have any questions about your policy? Has anything changed? It also provides us an opportunity to let them know the benefits of their policy that maybe they have forgotten about. I think that a lot of people view life insurance as a set it and forget it type of thing. Whereas your auto insurance, your car insurance, things like that, you're probably always shopping for the best deal. And so I think people just forget about it and they don't remember the benefits or know that there are add-ons or maybe they can increase policies, limits, and things like that. In your mind too, what do you think is most important from an agent standpoint, the relationship to have with a client over the life of a policy?
Yeah. So like you were saying, as we look at obviously life insurance or the type of things that we do aren't like auto policies. They're not, you buy a new vehicle, you might have interactions with your auto agent on a regular basis. Ours is more of that long-term perspective. And it goes back a little bit back to why I see this as important. It goes back to my founding principles, which is, again, think long-term. That's one of them. The other one is it's my job to empower you to take control of that financial picture in your life. Again, from a policy standpoint, I'm here to help you and empower you to take control of that policy. Just from the standpoint that if I'm the one that's always responsible, what happens the day I step off the street corner and I get graduated from this world? Then where does that put you as a client? So that's always what's in the back of my mind is I would rather teach you and empower you to take control of it. And part of that is having you understand that these are long-term contracts with insurance companies. And again, we use the policies on an ongoing basis for access to cash value, for leveraging it, for borrowing against it, for using it as collateral for other loans. There's a lot of things can be done with the policy, but unless we're having that conversation, either you might hear it from me once, or you might only, or you may never even know about it. But it's important to know that we can use it on an ongoing basis. And the other part of the equation is people's lives change. And just going back to the one client that was brought to our attention, I actually agreed to service a deceased agent's book of business to help some clients out. And this gentleman hadn't talked to an agent in 20 years. And I thought, how awful is that he hadn't talked to an agent in 20 years? And so when I stepped in to help out, come to find out his policy was in trouble. There wasn't enough money going into it, and there's a number of things going on with it. So we're able to help him right his ship. But it would have been a whole lot easier having these conversations 15 years ago, saying, hey, things are changing. We got to make this change. Little changes, but Kira, are easy to make. It's the big changes that kind of disturb most of us. It's just one of those things where we want to make sure by having conversations with you on a regular basis that A, we're keeping on top of what's going on in your life and your world, and then B, being able to recognize some patterns, some things going on that we might say, hey, we need to make a change here, or suggest to you, again, it's about empowering you that this might work, or this might work a little bit better now going forward. So it's just that ongoing conversation and communication from an agent standpoint to a client, but more importantly, from my business. I've invited you into my business, and I would hope that you would invite me into your business so we can both work as efficiently as possible in that relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does. And I would say the other thing too, as somebody who again is still learning about, the value of whole life insurance policies, if you have that conversation with somebody once a year, what do you find are things that people either say, oh man, I forgot that I can do that with my policy, or, oh, I didn't remember how that works. What are I guess some of the key, aside from you talked about the loan options and things like that, but what would you say are 2 or 3 of the key elements that are important to remind clients of on that annual basis that they can do with their policy, whether or not it's something that they do directly or it's something, for example, another client that we just most recently worked with, where without any questions, they offered her, I think it was an additional policy, if that's my wording on that is correct. But, those are things that I wouldn't have known existed had I not been working for you. So I'm wondering, what are those key things that you think maybe some of the clients don't necessarily know or remember by having that set it and forget it mentality on life insurance policy?
Yeah, that's a great point, is that a lot of your policies will have features. Some of those features might be like the one Kira just mentioned. They had what they call a guaranteed insurability option. So certain times in their lives, every 3 years or getting married, buying a house, they had the ability to increase their death benefit without any proof of insurability. What that means is that it's a guaranteed issue policy. And you'll get a letter about it, and insurance companies are always good about that. But like most things in life, unless it pertains to you at that moment, you're like, yeah, I'll get back to it later, and you set it aside. And that's typically as far as it goes until we would end up having that conversation. And then I can have that conversation about why that's important. Has your health changed? And we had a couple other clients that had some term riders and some term policies on there that they had. And those things, the guaranteed period was going to run out. So the question is, what are we going to do? Like most things in life, if we have some time and some space to think through the process and to understand the process, it makes it a lot less stressful to say, yeah, maybe we need to convert that, or, hey, my health is better than it was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago when I took the policy out. If that's the case, then, and if you want the coverage, then we just write new coverage. But if you say, hey, my health is not gotten better, it's actually gotten worse, now we can take advantage of some features in that policy to convert it to a permanent product without, again, having to go back and prove what your health looks like. They can get an automatic issue on that. So there's those type of things. Another one I've ran across a number of times is somebody might have been maybe a smoker or tobacco user at the time we wrote the policy. We got the coverage in place. It's exactly what they wanted. But now they've quit. They've found a different pathway. They said, hey, I'm off nicotine or whatever it is. There's possibility of reducing the rates on the policy you're paying by applying for a non-smoker rate. So just a number of things. And again, those are long-term impacts in your policy. And the short-term benefit is it decreases your how much you have to pay for the coverage you have. But for the long term, it actually helps accumulate better cash and different things in your policy. So those are some things that we talk about. On top of, if you do have your whole life policy and you want to use it, we'll remind you that you have that collateral there to be used to either weather storms or to find opportunities or take advantage of opportunities. So again, reminding people of the power of their policy as a living benefit, even more important than the death benefit that comes along with policy, because most people believe that a life insurance policy is just for a death benefit. And there are some policies that are like that, but the policies we design here at Sage Wealth Strategy are typically mostly designed to be used as the living benefits, or to be able to use it as collateral to borrow against and take control of the financing function in your life, as well as providing the death benefit. So we try to make it an and product as well.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that I just thought about this as we were, talking it through is I think that a lot of people probably don't think about the benefits of starting a policy on their offspring. What if somebody just recently had a baby in the last couple of years, and it's probably not on their forefront of their mind to have a policy, start a policy for their kiddos, so their kiddos can, see the benefit of that long-term wealth over, the course of their life as well. And as again, how it's passed on to generation from generation, like we've discussed, which of course is a whole nother topic of discussion at that point. But I think it just goes to show the importance of there are certain things that you just don't think about as your life progresses that could have a positive impact on your whole life policy.
Right. Exactly. And most, life is gradual for the most part. We change jobs, we increase, but having a kid is a big change in our lives. And a lot of people say, do I need policies on my kids? And I'm like, you don't need a policy on your kid, but you should want a policy on your kid. And I think this is important. I have a good friend of mine, and when his daughter was born, they didn't get a policy on her right away. They're like, oh, we have some time, newborn. She developed a leukemia at 6 months old in her blood system. Now she's fine, and that was 30 years ago. But the point was is that they couldn't get policies on her because she was uninsurable. Now that's changed, but think about how the importance when you have that child. One of the things we should think about is let's place a policy on a child, not so much for the death benefit today, but for the guaranteed insurability that we can add onto that policy for the future, and in ensuring that we can always have death benefit on that policy or on that child and be able to get that policy issued. The sooner you can do it, the sooner it happens. So again, life happens gradually. That's not one of them, but life happens gradually. You have a couple of pay increases at work, and also now you're making 10 years later, you're making double or triple what you did 10 years ago. And the coverage that you have is really inadequate for the desires and dreams that you have that you want to insure in the event that you're no longer on earth. Or like a friend of mine, Nelson Ashton, says, when we graduate from this earth, what do you want to leave behind? What dreams do you want to make sure happen the way you want them to happen, and how are you going to get that done? So again, we all have to graduate. We don't get out of this thing. Nobody gets out of this thing alive. So when that happens, what do you want to leave behind, and what do you want to make sure happens, and how is that going to happen? So,
yeah, and I think those are all just key things that need to be discussed on a regular basis with clients, just because the one that we primarily mentioned in the beginning, it was disheartening to learn that he had not had any contact with an agent, because that is his money, and that is helping, as we like to say, manage his wealth. And so I think it just brought up a very important subject on, hey, that's why we are your servicing agent on your policy. We are there to answer the questions that, or provide answers to the questions that you don't have the answers to. And that's why you're an agent. You have the answers to these questions. You're the, pardon the pun, but you're the wealth of knowledge as it pertains to whole life policies and what they can do for you. And we want our clients to have trust and faith in us that, we're going to have those answers, and we're going to be able to provide them with the best possible outcome for the long-term benefits of their policy.
Yeah. And as much as I love and care for all my clients, when you have a lot of clients, things are going to happen in their lives that I don't immediately know about. It's like the doctor doesn't know that you are feeling chest pains in your arm until you come into the doctor's office, or that you have a sore knee that you need to. I'll go back to my hip replacement. I had a relationship with my orthopedic surgeon. I knew who he was. I seen him at the golf course on occasions, and he didn't know I had to have a hip replaced until I made an appointment to come and see him. And then now, again, if I have an issue, he doesn't know what's going on with me unless I can let him know. So it's the same way. As much as I love and care for all of my clients, I want to make sure that what they want happens will happen. When change happens in their lives, you might think it's big or small. Reach out to us. Schedule some time to talk. I'd love to catch up and see what's going on so I can be of service to you in helping you accomplish your goals, empowering you to take advantage of the financing function in your life.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know too, is as bad as the cliche may be, I don't think there's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to your wealth and your future and your people underneath you, their future as well. So any question is always welcome, and I think it's important because you want everybody to feel comfortable about their policy and how they're handling their money.
Yeah. And we try to make sure that we have everybody's information. We try to reach out. We'll send out letters. And again, some people will say, I'm fine. Okay, that's good. As long as we understand that what we're trying to do is to be of service to you the best we know how. And until we know what that is, if something changes your life, let us know as quick as possible, and we'll let you know how that might impact what your plans are and how our policy, all the wealth advice we're giving you will change based on those changes in your life. It's a two-way street. Right? It's like any other communications. We'll try to reach out to you. We'll try to let you know through either podcast, just big picture things, our thought processes. We'll look at our blogs on sagewealthstrategy.com so you can understand what our thought process is and how we work, what we do. But just know that individually, if you have a policy with us, you can reach me directly and we can have that discussion, or visit with Kira and say, hey, I need to schedule some time with Wade. Let's get on the calendar because I have some questions or I have some changes in my life. So it's about communication. And again, communication is a two-way street. Anything else, Kira, that you can think of that from a consumer perspective that would be helpful to know?
No, I think those are some of the key things that, I've seen come across my desk, and just some general questions that I think I've had in learning about the business and the value of whole life. You're the expert here, so that's why I wanted to make sure that I asked your opinion on some of those things based on if, me being a consumer and saying, hey, what do I need to know? I am new to this game. And what do I need to know? And what do I need to be on the lookout for to maximize the benefits of my policy? Yeah, it was very informative.
Sounds good. I appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate Kira bringing this idea to the podcast, because this is something maybe we take for granted. I don't want to say take for granted, because I don't believe a relationship is anything we take for granted. But the idea of letting both sides know that, hey, we have to do a good job of communicating. In other words, how can we be of service to you? And then the other side of the equation, how do you find the best value of what you have? You have a tremendous tool in your toolbox, but if you don't know how to use it, it's not much of a tool. Again, the tool that you have, the policies you have, the products that we offer are tremendous tools. And we just have to make sure that you have a good understanding of how to use them. And if you don't, we're open to giving tutorials. We'd love to do that. So thanks, Kira. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And everybody take care. If you're enjoying this podcast or know anyone else that might be interested, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and please leave a review. This will help this podcast reach and help more people by ranking higher in searches, and ultimately help more people get out of financial bondage. And don't be afraid to share this podcast with your friends and family, as we can be easily found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.